What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here with me, Sean Sheehan, on Sherdog.com. And I'm here today to look ahead to the weekend in the world of fighting. We have two non-UFC cards on this weekend that I want to talk about, and they are the start of the PFL Mena promotion, I suppose you would call it. They have their first card this weekend, and I also want to look ahead to a little bit of KSW. So I'll pick you out a few fights from those two cards that I want to talk about. I also wanted to give a quick word on a fight that's actually coming up next week. Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk, right? So I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. And I know this is an MMA show, and I always like to keep it MMA, but there's a reason I'm bringing in. I'm going to bring it into MMA a little bit and just talk about it maybe for 5 minutes at the end of this, because I mightn't get a chance to next week, and I just wanted to do it because I think it is an important moment in combat sports, and I don't want to go without mentioning it, although it's boxing, so I could, I suppose, but I won't. The most important thing, I think, though, for us as mixed martial arts people this weekend, though, is the start of this PFL Mena promotion, and our side of the promotion, maybe you should call it. It's going down in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. As I know, a lot of MMA is happening these days, and you know, the Fury fight is there as well, isn't it? Yeah. So, and we know all about that. We've spoken about it many times. But I suppose this is a more logically placed Saudi Arabian card than most of the others, because it is the MENA card, so it makes a lot more sense. And a lot of the fighters obviously have fought or are fighting for the last few years in that area and come from that area as well, so it makes a lot more sense. And I'm very intrigued to see how this goes, because it's very different from the PFL Europe year that we just had, and the other one that we're in the middle of right now. And I'll tell you why in a second. But first of all, I spoke to Peter Murray a couple of weeks ago about this and asked about the PFL Europe season. And because if it's ever known, if you listen to my videos previewing the PFL Europe 1 card, you'll know that I was not very surprised, but surprised enough that it had changed tack a little bit. That last year it was a lot of really top prospects. I think Dan Hardy did a great job. Whereas this year it's more people, you know, top prospects, plus people that were there last year, plus, say, guys like a Kane Musa, who's been around for a long time, or, you know, like a Luke Shanks, or people like that who've been, you know, around the scene for a good while. Guys that, we kind of know what they are now. Or even you could, Franz Mamba, I know was in it last year, but you could maybe add him in again, coming back after getting to the finale last year. So, and he said it to me straight out, that's exactly what we want, which, you know, made sense. They're doing a good job of it. We want to get the best fighters in the region, find out who the best is, and send them on to the global. Whereas maybe a lot of people, myself included, might have looked at it as a, you know, you get your 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 fighters, you give them a great year, you give them maybe another year, and then you have them at a stage where they're able to win it maybe, and then go on. But I think their view of it actually is you get the best of the best in the area, we find out who the best is, and then you send it on, which is a little bit different, right? For the PFL Mena, I think it's what I imagined, right? So I do think they are getting a lot of the younger up-and-coming fighters in, giving them a big spotlight here, giving them a very professional show to fight on. And, you know, you do that twice a year, or you do that 3 years in a row even, and give someone, you know, 3 or 4 fights. That'll help them an awful lot to know they have somewhere to fight, to know they have somewhere to improve, to know they have somewhere that's going to give them a real paycheck, even if it isn't massive, you know, or whatever. But if they win it, they'll get a big one. And if they go on to, you know, to the world stage, they can do whatever they like. So I think that is more needed in a region like Mena than it is, let's say, in Europe. Like in Europe, I'm going to go on and talk about KSW in a while. Look, we have KSW who has young fighters and brings them up. We have, we've had Bellator for the last few years who's done that. KSW is obviously the kings of doing it, but let's say the likes, like the likes of Brave have signed fighters, the likes of UAE Warriors, and a lot of these fighters actually as well are coming from Brave and UAE Warriors in the Middle East, but they have helped the European fighters as well. Especially, a lot of the SBG fighters and stuff have fought out there, as well as Bellator and other places. So I think there is an obvious growing scene, and a scene that's been there for a long time in that region. Maybe not as settled or as fruitful maybe as the European scene. So I think, funnily enough, the PFL Mena is probably more needed in terms of the development of the sport. We heard about Francis Ngannou talking about PFL Africa, and it was really needed for the development of the sport. Absolutely, even more so there, I think. So I'm very interested to see how these ideas work over the next 5 years. I'm very interested to see how they develop, and I kind of asked Peter Murray if there's room for multiple of these, and he said not at the moment, but I think, like, let's say in Europe, and we'll take Europe as the example first, but Mena could be the same down the line, or it could be even the same pretty quickly, like where you have one tournament that is like the best of the best in the European region, let's say, or the MENA region, where it's people who are, the like, and I'll pick out one or two from this card. Ali Taleb is a good example, right? A guy who is, if you put him in there with someone who is 2-0, that'd be ridiculous matchmaking. Let's put it that way, okay? He is very, very, very good. So, the fighters between like 8-0, between like 8 fights and 20 fights, right? In one group, you find out the best of the best in that region and you send them on. Or say 8 fights up and then 8 fights down. So people who are maybe making their pro debuts, maybe you have a 3-0 against a 2-0 fighter or something like that. What we have at the moment on this card, and on PFL Europe a little bit, less on PFL Europe this year, is a mix, right? So I think in MENA, there's it's tougher. It'll be tougher to get, especially for the first go-around, especially when the difference between MENA and Europe is you have Dan Hardy, you have people who would know the whole region. I'm not sure if Jude Samuel is still on or not. If he is, he's someone who knows the whole region. And I'm sure they have people who know the whole region out in MENA as well, but it's maybe a different cachet or a different control of the region. And that's something that will possibly grow with years to come. So I would be very interested to see if that's how it grows. Like, I know, I was going to say Sherdog. I'm looking at the Sherdog page here. It's actually a Sherdog picture for one of the main events. But anyway, I just wonder if I know PFL here in Ireland, there's some sort of a relationship with Cage Legacy that they will sign up Cage Legacy fighters and things like that. I wonder if in other regions they might do the same, or they might look to, not even if they invest in promotions, but to maybe even give them, here's 10 grand and you put on an event, and whoever the event winner is gets in the next PFL Mena season or something like that. You pick out like the best promotion and do it. I'd be interested if they did stuff like that to find new talent and get new talent, because I think there's a lot of promotions out there that would do that. Like, let's say, as I mentioned, Cage Legacy here in Ireland, if you did that, you'd get all the best young talent in Ireland to enter that, to get a chance to win that bit of money, like, and to go on to PFL Europe, whatever it might be. So it's I'm very, very intrigued to see how this moves and works over the next few years, because I wonder, like, I wonder if it will move, or if the talent will just say, look, this is a big opportunity. When I'm a younger fighter, I'm not going to be getting that much money fighting anywhere else. I might as well sign here, and then I have a chance to get the 100 grand. I have a chance to go for the million, and that's a very intriguing prospect for a lot of people. So I think watch this space on that. Right, let's get into this card, and I want to pick out 2 fights here especially, but I want to look at a couple of the other fighters as well. The main event is Abdul Al-Khatani against Taha Bin Naou. And I'm sure the pronunciations of these will be absolutely amazing, as always. Al-Khatani is a guy who people might know. He's 8-1 now, and he fought on the PFL versus Bellator fight that happened back in February. He's also fought last year on the he fought in 2023 in one of the PFL playoff cards, and in twice in 2023 actually. He fought in Brave many times, and he is a very, very good fighter who's been doing it since 2018, and as I said, a very, very good record. And we'll talk more about him in a second. He's an opponent in the Atlas Lion, is his nickname. He's fighting out of Canada, but he's fought, as I mentioned, UAE Warriors. He's fought twice there. And he won a fight before that as well after a couple of amateur fights. So look, there's a big difference, I suppose, in experience there, and the level of fighters as well. I think Al-Qahtani is a much better fighter. Watching him, he's a very loose fighter with all parts of his game really, but very aggressive, and he's big for the weight. You definitely have to call him a grappler. I think just looking at his record here again, I believe he has 6 decisions out of his 8 wins and only 2 knockouts. Only 1 submission though for a guy. I think that record will improve and change. I think he will get more submissions. He's also fighting out of Saudi Arabia, so he's going to be the hometown guy there. But very good body lock takedowns by him. He loves to counter with aggressiveness. He takes shots while he gives shots as well while doing that countering. But the ground and pound is the best part of his game. Very aggressive with it, but loose as well, like throwing these kind of flapping hands as he does it. But it's dangerous, like, and the same when he's striking. A guy, and there's a few guys in this card that they're very, very green. He's probably a little bit less green than most while still kind of being a bit green. But I think he's a very good prospect, and I think he should win this fight. Taha, at the other side of it, then he kind of has this odd stance, but it's effective. He has like the 2 hands like really forward in a karate stance. I don't think I've ever seen a stance like it for something maybe akin to a little bit like Kayla Knockern, but not really. He's a very much I was looking at him first, I was like, he's a southpaw, and I was like, wait, hold on. He's just switching stances all the time. It's very difficult to know. I honestly, I was watching one of his fights, and I was like, this guy's definitely a southpaw. And he's like, okay, he's switching. And then there was maybe the second round of the fight, and I was like completely orthodox. I was like, I'm really not sure what he is, but he is a switch stance fighter. Gets taken down an awful lot. It's, as I said, very, very, very green, but looks like he has big hands in him. He's never got a knockout yet. He's only 3 fights into his career, but he looks like he's gonna, he's gonna knock someone out. He's a good rhythm. He's accurate with those hands as well. So Al-Qahtani, I would say the biggest worry for him, I think, is that defensive liability. Taha looks like he is a guy, we haven't seen much of it yet. Obviously, as I said, 3 fights into his career. He looks like a guy with improvement, that he could be that aggressive kind of counter striker. We saw it in the UFC at the weekend with Ruffy. That push forward counter striker. Al-Qahtani is more of a push forward striker, push forward takedown artist, push forward, throw everything he has type of fighter. Whereas I think Taha bin Dawood is more of like he could become a very good fighter. I think he has a high ceiling, but obviously still very young in his career. You never know. Some people at that stage, they mightn't even be fighting in 2 or 3 years, but some people at that stage could be 10-0 in 2 or 3 years. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. The standout fighter in this card is without a shadow of a doubt, though, Ali Taleb. Anyone who listened to my PFL Europe previews last year, he was in it, and he was I think he was my standout fighter on the in the whole thing. He's a really, really, really good fighter. He got to the finale of that, and he was beaten probably the other standout of it, and that was Khurshid Kakarov, who beat him by unanimous decision. But he looked phenomenal. He choked out Darius Maffei. He beat Kenji Bortoluzzi, knocked him out. He was also another guy who was in UAE Warriors, and he won 4 or 5 fights there. Looked really, really good. He's a proper finisher as well. 8 finishes in 9 fights. His opponent, Nauras Abzah, he's coming out of Jordan Amman. One of the most experienced guys in this. He's 17 fights, and he has 10 finishes in his 12 wins. He has, and they actually fought before. Ali Taleb won that fight. I couldn't find it. It's a UAE Warriors fight. Now that I'm thinking, actually, is UA Warriors on Fight Pass? Is it? Maybe the one Fight Pass is the one place I didn't look. So I'm not sure if it is on Fight Pass, actually. But anyway, I couldn't find that fight that on Google anywhere. But he has fought some very, very good guys. Although I did find some other UA Warriors fights on YouTube. Anyway, we shall refrain. I watched a good couple of his fights, though. And, you know, I know obviously not about Taleb, but Nauras, he's, as I said, 7 sub wins, looks for the takedowns. Not the most amazing takedown artist ever, but he's almost better when he gets taken down. He does get taken down a fair bit. Very good off his back. And I think the reason why he gets taken down is he really sits down in his shots. Like, really sits down in these shots. He does connect, but he gets hit an awful lot as well, which could be an issue against Ali Taleb. He reminds me a little bit of, maybe not technically, but maybe tactically, of like the Verdums, the Jacares back a few years ago when, you know, they would throw all out on the feet just to kind of get taken down so they could use their jiu-jitsu. That's the type of fighter he is. But Taleb, the other side of it, he's been trained under Akira Kurosawa. Again, a very switch stance fighter, loads of fakes and feints that work very well for him. Great straight right hand, hits very hard, great movement, great jab, great cardio, great chin. He's one of those guys. I was talking to someone recently about fighters like Ali Taleb, and not specifically Ali Taleb, but there's just some fighters out there that they're very tough to fight. I think Leon Edwards is probably the best in the world of very tough fighters to fight. It's like you're going to have to be very, very good to beat a guy like that. You know, even like you look at Leon, right, and you'd say he's not the best in the world, or probably not in the top 5 in the world at anything in MMA, right? But if you're to put it all together, he's, you know, he might be the best in the world all around, you know, and just at being hard to pick a flaw in his game. That says a lot about people. Now, Taleb, maybe the one thing that was the issue for him when he fought Kakarov, is that slight bit of, I would say 2 things, slight bit of experience and a slight bit of athleticism maybe. Now, you know, Kusha Kakarov is not exactly the most experienced guy in the world either, but he fights, you know, he fights like an experienced guy. He's only 13 fights into his career, you know, and, you know, seeing him fight up you know, up close in live when he beat Franz Malambo, and Franz was doing well in that fight, but he's crushing power, and he is, that sort of thing will make you think as well. But in Taleb, you know, you have to have something like Kusha Kakarov has to beat him, and I'm not sure if Nauras will have that, and I definitely think Taleb will end up winning that fight without a shadow of a doubt. There is some other guys as well in this card who you may or may not have heard of, and I'll run you through some of them. So one guy that really stands out to me is Rashid Haz. I actually think he's an underdog as well in this fight against Xavier Aloui, who's fighting out of Canada. I know Haz because he fought Franz Malambo a couple of fights ago. I watched a good bit of his fights before that. He's beaten, I think he won 4 fights in a row before that, and he's fought, he lost to Jordan Vucinic as well, but you know, when you fight Jordan Vucinic, you got to the 3rd round with him, went all the way to Franz Malambo. That was only a split decision. He fought Yanis Gamori as well, lost a split decision. So if you're fighting good guys like that and you're running them close, you're no joke of a fighter, and he absolutely is no joke of a fighter. You know, 7 finishes and he's out of his 10. 31 years of age now, so now is the time, I suppose, to do it. His opponent is, you know, 19 fights into his career. Another guy as well who's like good on the ground and a lot of submission wins. Kind of over the last while, he's been kind of lose one, win one. He did go on a 4-fight win streak there at one stage, and he was over in UAE Warriors, but then he's lost 2 of his last 4 again. So interesting fight there. Again, for Aloui, he's fought Josh Hill, and he fought in a couple of big promotions. But again, time I suppose to move on for guys like him. Adam Miskini is another guy whose name I would definitely mention there. He's fighting Islam Reta, and Reta is 9-1, the Egyptian zombie. I was watching a bit of him, very much a submission guy. 9 wins, 8 by submission, has won his last 3 in a row. He's only ever lost to Abdul Al-Khatani, who's the main eventer here. So he's definitely a guy to watch on the ground. With Miskini fighting out of France, has has fought on a couple of those French cards. He fought in Cage Warriors as well. He fought Emery Somnes. I remember that one. He went to decision with him again. A lot of these lads lose in these fights, but when you go to decision with someone that good, that you're a good fighter as well. He's well able to take care of himself on the ground, with 3 submission wins, but he has knockout power as well. So that's definitely one to take care of. And then I think the rest of the card, apart from a few obvious kind of names, Jalal Al-Dada has 18 fights. He's taken on Tariq Ismail, who is 7-1, and there's a guy Elias Boudzem, who's 18-1, taking on 8-5. Nassan Manur. A lot of the other fighters have very few fights. Like there's in the women's atomweight division, there's 2 debutant fighters taking on each other. There's a 5-0 versus 5-2 fighter, 4-0 versus 3-0, 3-0 versus 6-1, and then another couple of amateur or of debutants in the flyweight division as well. So very much a mixture on that card, but I'm very much looking forward to it and seeing how it lines up. Let's have a quick talk about KSW as well. So KSW, literally in the last 24 hours of when I'm recording this, has had a change in the main event. Adrian Bartosinski is now taking on Igor Michelzin, whose name I'm sure I pronounced exactly right. Shout out to my guy Sean Denny, who actually didn't send me the pronunciations this time, but I got some facts and figures from him for this card as well. He is always great to help out. But I suppose a lot of people would know about Bartosinski after he beat Saladin Parnasse back at the end of last year. His opponent's coming in now on only what? Today is the 7th. This card is on the 11th, so 4 days notice, which is not a long time at all. But look, he's on a great run. He's won his last 5 in a row. 2 of which have been in KSW, but he also fought Tommy Romanovsky outside of KSW. He fought Daniel Skibinski, unfortunately lost to him, but he's been around a good bit since 2015. He absolutely knows what he is doing, and I'm looking forward to this fight. Like when you beat Saladin Parnasse for Bartosinski, that means something, and it means an awful lot. And like he's a guy who's a real finisher. 12 finishes in 14 fights, 11 of them by knockout, and you can't substitute something like that. Unbelievable kickboxer, will just knock you out if given a chance. Really good footwork, really accurate, and can wrestle and is good on the ground as well. His opponent, he's 28 years old, powerful fighter as well, with 7 finishes in his 10-fight winning streak so far. He's training under Sean Lilby Thomas Brandner. He's one of these real hardcore Polish trainers, and he's a very good takedown artist. His Igor, lovely ground up. I was watching a bit of him. I think he's one of those guys who, if he gets on top of you, it could be curtains for anyone. He only needs one chance. He's really good ground and pound, and he can choke you out if you're turning over and trying to get away from that ground and pound. He can absolutely make your life a misery. So it's not at all. You think, look, okay, Bartosinski's going to be a big favorite here, but it's one of those fights where one mistake and it could be a big issue for him. But look, you'd obviously have to lean towards Bartosinski, and this one, it's his first fight in over a year as well as it for Igor. Sean was telling me he had a back injury, so that is not the best time, I suppose, on 4 days notice, but maybe there's no better time. You never know. The co-main event then is a very interesting fight. I previewed one of Arkadiusz Vorshek's recent fights. I think he's Hightower is his nickname, isn't it? Yeah. So I think is it Arda they call him for job, but it's Hightower anyway. 31 years of age. He came over from kickboxing, and I think he's a win over Badr Hari, but he has looked unbelievable in mixed martial arts. He won his last fight in 55 seconds. All the rest are, he's a forearm choke. He's a knockout in the later rounds. He's a guy who's been getting taken down, but getting back up and absolutely knocking lads out. And he is so exciting, really good. 31 years of age as well only, so he still has a bit of time to go. He's fighting Artur Spilka. I suppose a lot of people would know, a former professional boxer, but he knocked out Mariusz Pudzianowski in the Coliseum last year. He's 35 years of age, but he fought Deontay Wilder and all. Obviously, he's going to have really good hands. He's undefeated in MMA as well, 3-0. And this is going to be a stand-up fight, you would have to think. I think Usyk would have probably the advantage if it did go to the ground, because he had a little bit more experience there, or at least he's looked a little better there. But I do think he'll win. I think Warshuk's, maybe his kicking game, if he's able to throw leg kicks, he's able to keep it at distance. He's not the best actually at keeping it at distance in MMA anyway, but maybe against the boxer, maybe against the guy who's going to strike with him, maybe he'll be a little bit better at that. But that's definitely one I'm looking forward to, and that's going to be a fight that I think will excite a lot of people. The featherweight title is on the line in the interim title, as we know. Saladin Parnasse, the aforementioned guy who was going to be a three-way champion, is, I believe, out of contract and a free agent. So whether he'll sign with KSW or sign with somewhere else, who knows? But this is an interim title, could be for the main title, and it's two of the best fighters over the last few years in KSW. Robert Rochala against Patrick Kazmarczyk, whose name I always pronounce so incredibly well. It's a very exciting fight. Rochala 9-1. His only loss is to the aforementioned Saladin Parnasse. He's beaten Damian Stasiak. He's beaten Patrick Kazmarczyk before, but that was it was 3-4 years ago. These guys are very young in their career. I don't think there's into the decision as well. I don't think there's a whole lot to tell from that one, to be honest. Since Kazmarczyk has done very well as well. He's won 4 of his 5 fights, even beaten Daniel Rutkowski last time out of KSW 88, back after about 6 months out now as well. So very, very interested to see that. I think when there is a fight like this where it is very much unknown what's going to happen with the interim belt and with the champion, I think it adds a little bit extra to it. Rochala, who is very good on the ground. I'm sure he'll be able to try to pull him down and get that submission. Whereas Kazmarczyk is kind of maybe the knockout artist who can fight on the ground as well. I know, but I'd say that's the kind of look you'll be able to get from here. 1 or 2 names on the rest of the card. Casper Formella, who's 21 fights deep in his career. He's coming on from FEN, and he was apparently a big signing for them, Sean was telling me. He's fighting Ahmed Villa. Bartosz Leszko, who's been around for a good while. He's fighting Mikhail Michalak, and Ricardo Porcel as well, who I believe used to play for Chelsea in soccer, is also on this card. So very much looking forward to that. It's in a big arena as well, over in Poland. I believe 12,000 capacity in the Ergo Arena. It's in the border of Gdansk and Sopot. So another magnificent night for European MMA. So let me finish this by talking a little bit about this Tyson Fury Oleksandr Usyk boxing match. And I just wanted to mention one thing, right? That I feel two ways about this fight, right? First things first. I really like the fact that it is, to me anyway, exactly what fights should be in terms of the boxing match itself. Now, and actually I'll get to that in a second. The other part is much shorter. I think the whole Saudi thing, the whole fighting in front of almost no people thing, I actually think that really brings down some of these fights. Now maybe this one will be a little bit different or something, but I feel it does bring down a fight an awful lot. Just for me as a viewer, and I look myself as more of a fan of boxing than someone covering it. I'm a fan of boxing. A casual fan of boxing. Anyway, that's one point I wanted to make. I'm looking forward to it until I think of that. Until I think of is this going to be like those WWE shows they did a while back? It's like, oh my God, you see the ones they do in France, and then you see there, and you see MMA in France, and you see there, you see MMA in Ireland or the UK, and it's just different. And boxing is all I think. Like, imagine if this was in Wembley Stadium in front of 70,000 people or 90,000 people, or whatever. But anyway, that's a point outside of the rest of the issues we talk about with Saudi Arabia, as we all know. And as we absolutely should mention, we were talking about things like this. But the actual fight itself, and why I'm looking forward to it, and I hope it's not brought down by that, is this. It reminds me of an MMA fight, right? And I was thinking about, I was actually about to pull up like the records and stuff before I did this, and I said no, I'll just talk about this off the cuff, right? And one of the reasons is here's something you shouldn't be getting from someone like me, right? I think this is a unification fight, right? I think this is for all the belts. I'm not sure. I could have gone and looked it up, right? But it doesn't matter, because the vast majority of people are like me, right? The vast majority of people who are signing up to buy the pay-per-view to watch this fight are like me. This is a unification bout for all the belts. Vladimir Usyk has... I knew I call him Vladimir Usyk. Oleksandr Usyk. I don't know why. It's because... Who is there? There's someone else. I don't know. Anyway, Oleksandr Usyk has 3 of the belts. Tyson Fury has 2 of them or whatever. That's how I look at it. Maybe it's wrong, right? And I think it's right. But and that to me is, okay, we're finally getting an undisputed heavyweight champion. I have watched these heavyweights. I watched all the heavyweight boxing matches. I haven't watched any of the other divisions, but I watched, all the Joshua boxing matches. I've watched all the Usyk ones at heavyweight, all the Tyson Fury ones for years now, all the Deontay Wilder ones. And it felt like a lot of the time, apart from the Wilder and Fury, that they were all avoiding each other. And I know Usyk and Joshua fought as well, and give them credit, absolutely, but it's great to see it. And it reminds me, I said I'd bring MMA into it, but it reminds me of MMA. And it should remind MMA fans as well how lucky we are. That every time we have a fight, basically, it's an undisputed fight, right? And I understand when people get mad about the whole Tom Aspinall, John Jones stuff and all, because I think we acknowledge that and we appreciate it and we understand that, right? So for boxing to have that once, this is kind of me shitting on boxing here a little bit, I just realised. But it's great. It's not me. It's me giving them credit, right? And just on the boxing match itself, I'm very intrigued on it because I feel like here's the reason I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued because of the Francis Ngannou Tyson Fury bout. It's made Tyson Fury look beatable, right? Whereas I think if that hadn't happened and, the injury happened or the cut or whatever it was and they just came in here fighting, I know how good Usyk is. I think he's absolutely fantastic, and do you know what, he could beat Tyson Fury. But I think if that Ngannou fight hadn't happened, the talk coming into next week's fight would be, Tyson Fury is just the big, too big. The good big and will always beat the good little one. And there would, even if true or not, right, it might talk people out of buying, or it might talk people out of being excited about it. Now you're kind of thinking, well, this guy almost got beat by a novice 6 months ago or whatever it was. And he's gone in against the cruiserweight champion, heavyweight champion, Olympic champion, one of the best, most skillful boxers in the world. This is going to be a tough night for Tyson Fury, isn't it? So that's what you're thinking now going into it. And that's great. That level of intrigue. Like, I probably would have been one of those people as well that said, look, I really like Usyk, but, the closer I got to, it's like, it's Fury's fight. And, like, there's a kind of a catch-22 there in a positive way. Because, like, that is probably the talk going into it. But then you're like, actually, Tyson Fury is really good. And he probably will win, I think. Although I just said a minute ago, I think Usyk will. So I don't know. And that's what's great about this level unknown. I often go and I look at boxing matches and the betting on before the match, and it's like minus 6,000, or you don't want that. I'm sure, I haven't looked at the betting, but I'm sure it's unbelievably close, this one. So it's great for boxing. It's great for casual boxing fans like myself to have something to look forward to. And it's great that us as MMA fans can kind of look at it and go, oh, well done, lads. We have this every week. Congratulations. Fair play to you. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. As you can probably guess by my differing proposals there, I'm not sure who's going to win, but may the best man win. All right, I will leave it there. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe. Please do all those things. Follow me on Twitter at Sean Sheehan BA, and have a great day. My name is Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.